Welcome to this week's podcast. We are talking all about change and chasing goals. And specifically, if you read the title, you are not failing. You just have not changed who you are. So whether it be a weight loss goal, a lifestyle goal, or a personal goal of some kind, we're specifically focusing on that loop that we get in when we go all in, fall off the wagon, run out of energy, run out of hope, run out of faith, all that stuff, and start to think that we actually can't achieve that goal. So by focusing on it as an identity level problem, it actually empowers you to make the change and to make it stick. So that's the focus for today. I hope you enjoy it. And for the episode, I'm just going to be referring to health changes, but just know that this applies to pretty much any goal that you may have. So the number one misunderstanding when it comes to health and well-being is that health is not something that you can just turn on overnight. A healthy lifestyle, it's not something you can turn on overnight. It's something that builds incrementally over time. So if you've got any type of health goal, be it weight loss, be it career goals, friendship goals, anything like this, or a training goal, like say you want to run a marathon or something, you just have to remember always that these kinds of goals require identity level transformation. So we're going to have a look at what it is likely that you're trying to do, why this happens, like how we end up in this loop in the first place, and how you can have a much less stressful transformation journey. So a lot of people approach their transformation goals thinking that I'll just turn it all on Monday, or I'll just get the perfect plan, I'll just get the perfect setup, the perfect app download, the perfect calendar, something like that, and it'll just be on. Once I have the plan, it will be easy. And this is the first mistake that everybody makes, because nothing is that easy. And a healthy lifestyle is absolutely, I would have to say, hugely underestimated. And especially something like a weight loss goal, it is extremely underestimated what is required in order to actually achieve the goal and then sustain it in the long term if you make it that far. And this is because the person that you are now is not the person who can achieve the goal. So you need to think like, whatever this goal is, who do I actually need to be on a daily basis? And then how am I going to keep this up long term? Is it even something I want to keep up long term? And that last bit's a conversation for another day. And if I'm to give like another example, so a non-health example, you can't just become, say, an engineer tomorrow, or you can't just become a lawyer tomorrow if you're not already a lawyer. Like there's a process you have to go through of like learning the law or learning how to build stuff or, learning physics, and you start to apply it very slowly. And then by the end of your kind of training, you will have a full understanding of what that particular goal encompasses, whether it being an engineer, being a doctor, being a lawyer. And then you have to go out and practice. And then as you go and practice, life throws things in your way, which you then have to navigate. And that's totally normal. This is how we become the person that we want to be. If you want to be a lawyer, you have to become a lawyer, but you don't just turn it on and turn it off. And the same thing goes for healthy lifestyle. You can't just turn on health and then go back to whatever you were doing yesterday, because the person that you were yesterday, or in this case today, is the person that does not have the habits, does not have the structure, and does not have the capacity to sustain it long term. And the main reason why this happens is because we humans are very habitual beings. So as we're growing up, we get programmed by the environment. We also have our own unique characteristics, but these things all kind of mix in together like a washing machine, which then leaves you, and the result of that is who you are today. So how you think, how you act, how you eat, how you move, where you work, how you parent your children, all of this is a result of a mix between your personality and the environment of which you live in. Okay, so we're all products of our environment. And the body, it loves to stay in what is familiar. So the body is a master of homeostasis, which is keeping things the same. The body doesn't like radical change. It doesn't like shocks. It doesn't like anything that's not aligned with exactly where it is right now. And you might think, well, I drink a bottle of wine every night. Like, that's not healthy. It should be easy to just get rid of it. But for your body, it's already found a way to cope with that bottle of wine. So as soon as you take it out, as you would notice, you have withdrawals, your body starts to fight you because it does not know how to function without it. So everything that you have layered onto your lifestyle, everything that you have been doing in your life is now an integrated part of who you are as a human being. And then where the challenge comes is that we obviously decide sometimes, I don't want to be that person anymore. And then try and change it overnight. So recognizing how huge that probably feels to a body that doesn't have the wiring for healthy lifestyle and doesn't have the understanding, or the education is another huge piece. Like most people don't even understand what a healthy lifestyle looks like, especially when it comes to food. So we'll tend to see it as this extreme kind of project that we need to overhaul everything at once. And then if you think about, like if you have a goal in mind at the moment that you're really struggling, or if there's a pattern of yours that you've been looping on, then, and I'll just use a healthy lifestyle again as an example. So if you're thinking, so bring that to mind, whatever the goal is, and then ask yourself these questions. What are my real values and thoughts about this thing? For example, healthy lifestyle. Do you actually like training? Do you actually like exercise? If you go running, do you like running, or do you think you have to run? Do you like eating healthy, or do you find it exhausting? Or do you find it bland? Do you find it boring? Because if you were to say, I find healthy eating too expensive, I find it too exhausting, I hate meal prep, and I don't like getting up early, and that's the only time I have to train, then that's who you are. So of course you're struggling if you try on Monday to get up at 5 a.m., prep your meals on Sunday night when really you just want to be watching Netflix. It's going to be a real challenge for you. But someone who doesn't struggle with that, so someone who has a healthy lifestyle and they don't struggle with it, it's already integrated into their identity. So for me personally, and didn't start this way, I absolutely hated meal prepping, but it's something I turned into a fun task. It's something that I realized the benefits of over time. So then it's something I spent 3 hours on a Sunday morning doing every single week without fail. It became an integrated part of my identity, and then eating those prepped meals throughout the week then became another part of my identity. But it didn't happen overnight. Of course there was weeks where I forgot to prep or I decided not to, but then I felt the consequences of that and the misalignment between who I was and who I wanted to be, that I kept pulling it back to trying again and trying again and trying again. So trying and failing is a huge part of the transformation process. So just because you've tried a little bit and then you've fallen back a bit doesn't actually mean you've stuffed it up. It just means that you need to reevaluate it. Did I move too fast? Did I cook food that I really don't want to eat? Did I cook myself chicken and broccoli when I actually hate chicken reheated? Really have a look at what you're doing and try and make it something that the body will not feel completely threatened by. Then the third reason why this usually shows up as a problem is because when we're overwhelmed, we'll pretty much drop anything that is not a part of our integrated being. So like I described with the meal prep, if I had a really overwhelming weekend, let's just say I had, a breakup or a fight with a boyfriend, or I was away or something, because meal prepping was not an integrated part of my being, I would just skip it, right? It would be the first thing that would drop. But would I not show up to work on Monday? No, I'd show up to work because work is essential. It's a part of my being. Like we all kind of grow up knowing that we have to go to work. If you have kids, then you have to attend to your children. If you have a partner, then you have to connect with your partner. You have home duties. You might have study with deadlines. So you've got all of these imposed activities that you're forced to pay attention to and that you cannot let slip. And if you have an integrated healthy lifestyle, so if it's a part of who you are, then your training is something you will not let slip. Like you might let something else slip before that. Or you might get up 1 hour earlier, like 4 a.m. just because you want to fit it in because it's already a part of who you are. But it's an effortless decision. It's not a negotiation. It's not something that falls off when you're busy. I was talking to a client a few weeks ago who kept falling off her diet and coming back on, like really wanted to lose weight, but her partner was away or went on holidays, work stress, like thought she was going to lose her job for a couple of days. And in all of those incidences, she fell off the diet, and then went back to just eating carbs and treats and frozen stuff from the supermarket. But that's because that is who she is. So this person's identity is a junk food eater. This person's identity is someone who doesn't like exercising. She's trying to learn how to build a healthy lifestyle. So because it's not integrated in who she is, every time something comes along and kind of knocks her off her path, the first thing to fall down is the food. And then when you go back to the homeostasis example I gave you earlier, she falls back to what's familiar because the body loves what is familiar. It's comforting. And then we have the fourth point, which is that emotional connection to food is a coping strategy, or watching Netflix is a coping strategy. Watching a movie is a coping strategy. Like escaping real life is a coping strategy, but often going to the gym and running yourself through a weight training workout or prepping your food or planning your meals for the next week, these things aren't coping strategies for most people. And actually, I should add there that for some people with very healthy lifestyles that you see from the outside, it actually is a coping strategy. So there's also that aspect, like eating disorders and orthorexia. These are all means of using dieting and exercise for coping. So there's an inversion there. Like some people, their coping strategy is Netflix and a bag of lollies. For somebody else, the coping strategy is to go to the gym and run it out on the treadmill or deadlift heavy weights or something like that. Everyone's really different. So what you've really got to do is just look at who am I? What are my values? What am I comfortable with? Where am I now? And just be really forgiving with yourself if you didn't grow up in a healthy household. So for me, one thing that my mum did really well was always talked about healthy dinners versus not healthy dinners. And I hated it at the time because I wanted to eat like my friends. I wanted to have more pasta. I wanted to have more treats in my lunchbox. I wanted to have snack money for lunch, like I buy a pie instead of eating my sandwich. But my mum was very focused on this is healthy, this is not healthy. She come from a very traditional German family. My grandma used to spend hours cooking. But I've had clients over the years who just ate whatever they wanted. They were raised on Maggi noodles. They were able to just grab snacks from the cupboard. And even me, with my mum having healthy values, I still struggled to embody a healthy lifestyle. So even then, it was still difficult. So if you imagine coming from one, not understanding nutrition at all. Some people had zero education. Food was food. Then you've got parents that revolted against what their parents imposed on them. So you have people who's raised by a mother who constantly talked about fat and constantly restricted their diet or poked at their body. So in order to balance that out with their own children, they've let their children have anything that they want. But now they've got a 21-year-old or even a 31-year-old who eats whatever they want, and all they want is to feel good, to lose weight, to have a healthy lifestyle, but they struggle with it so much because it is not who they are. So that's generally the issue. It's an identity level problem. It's not being realistic about who you are. And also, as the title suggests, it's not a personal failure. It's not a moral failure. It's just something you do not know yet, something that you have not embodied, something you've never been taught, but you can learn. So you resist because change is really scary. Your body hates change, even if it's the best thing in the entire world for you. The only way your body's going to learn is that a healthy lifestyle is better than an unhealthy lifestyle is once you finally get enough succession in there for it to feel the difference. For me personally, in my 20s, I used to binge eat a lot. And the first time I ever really got my head around how good healthy nutrition was when I started bodybuilding. And it wasn't until maybe halfway through my prep, when cheat meals were taken away, that I had about 6 to 8 weeks of undisturbed eating. So just eating off my meal plan, which was like chicken, oats, vegetables, apple. We used to have udose oil, which is this feral oil I've never made anyone ever drink. Whey protein, not even protein bars, nothing like that. It was a very natural, it was what we called a clean diet. And for about 6 to 8 weeks, I remember feeling like clear-headed, consistent energy, like more positive mood. Like it was the first time in my life, I think, that I was probably not inflamed, if I'm to look back. Like I didn't have low-grade inflammation coming from my diet, which was usually coming from just eating too much sugar, too many snacks, obviously trying to stick to a healthy diet, but just not having the skills back then. And then having huge binge sessions. So, diet on, diet off. And when you do that, you get this nice little week of clear sailing, I guess you could say, where your body starts to go, oh, this is quite nice, and then you just smash your face with alcohol and junk food on the weekend and you set it all the way back to zero again. But that period of time is what really got me realizing the value of healthy nutrition. And then even then, it still took years after for me to be able to actually lock that down, like lock the habit down, because I had a lot of dysregulation associated with eating. And this is really common as well, that emotional connection to food that we were talking about before. So it's totally normal to try and fail over and over and over again. But understanding that it's an identity level problem, and I wish someone had taught this to me so long ago so that I could have just taken smaller steps. So it's an identity level problem. If it's not integrated into your identity, you will drop it as soon as you're overwhelmed. If you have an emotional connection to food, or if your coping strategies don't involve fitness and exercise, you will struggle. And change is really scary for your body. So that being said, what do we do about it? So how do we actually work towards this systemic whole body transformation, a really healthy lifestyle without so many slip ups, without such an internal battle? So the first tip is that you need to become who you dream to be, which is just another way of saying you need to integrate it into your identity. And another term for this is becoming more embodied. So it's embodying the habits so that they become a part of who you are. So it's your second nature. So whatever it is that you do is an embodied strategy. In order to change your habits, you need to be who you dream to be. So have a look into the future, like what does someone with a healthy lifestyle do? What practices do they do? What's the most inspiring or interesting part of that to you that you could start with? And that takes us to our second one, which is to do everything in slow increments. So yes, you can do the turn it on, turn it off strategy, but just knowing that every time you turn it on, sometimes it's going to turn off and you're going to have to restart again. And there's actually nothing wrong with that if every time you start again, you have new perspective or a different strategy. Okay, the worst thing that can happen is when you just keep starting the exact same strategy and it just keeps failing because there's obviously a piece missing. So changing things really slowly is a really powerful way to change because one, it doesn't stress your body out because it feels safe. It feels like something manageable. You haven't moved the needle too far in any particular direction. And then also, as far as like holding on to the habit, it's easier to sustain if it's just one small thing. So if you've overhauled your entire lifestyle right before you have the end of financial year coming up at work, which is just pushing you into 60-hour weeks, there's no way that that's going to stick. But let's just say you identified one of the habits that you want to change as being you drink way too much coffee. So let's just say you have 5 cups of coffee a day. You could bring that down to 4 and then 3 and then 2. And you could go, all right, cool. I've embodied that now, or could you, if you're having alcohol at night, like instead of having a bottle, could you have 2 glasses for a while? And then it's really interesting when you approach things in this way. If you approach it slower and with more forgiveness, knowing that some days you're going to have more and some days you're going to have less, what actually happens is you'll often wake up one day or get through the entire day and not actually reach for it. So you'll realize there's been a shift because it's actually better for your body. It's an improved strategy when it comes to your health and well-being, and your body will just integrate that. And another big one is things, people that have really, really chaotic eating is just removing things like soft drink or, what's the point of least friction? Like, what's the first thing that you think you could get rid of? And a lot of people will go, Jen, I'm ready for weight loss, but I can't let go of the coffee. I have to have a caramel latte in the morning. So I'll go, okay, we're keeping that in. Because why would I take out the one thing that they feel like they really need straight away? And another thing that I put in is chocolate every day, dark chocolate every day. It's in the diet. People go, I can't believe I can eat chocolate every day. But for every single person that likes chocolate, giving that to them, it kind of gives them that what they would call a guilty treat, even though in reality, dark chocolate's actually very good for you. Or it might just be drinking water. Like, you don't drink any water during the day. So how can you add 1.5 liters of water every day? And then increase that to 2. Or if it's training and say you think, I can't train 5 days a week, I don't have any time. How could you train once a week? How could you train 2 30-minute sessions a week? Or if you feel like, I don't even know what to do and then overwhelmed, then can you hire someone? Can you join a group class at the gym? How do you lower the friction so that you can take that first step? And then lastly, you want to let go of perfectionism. So that's the all or nothing approach. If I can't do it perfect, there's no point doing it at all. And that would have to be the slowest, most challenging and most frustrating way to change anything, because there is zero integration in perfectionism, like none whatsoever. It's just, I need to be someone completely different and I need to be it perfectly or I'm failing completely. And from a coach's standpoint, like I've had a lot of experience coaching women. So, 14 or more years with nutritional training, body transformation, sports coaching. And someone who follows a diet 100% on day one, unless they're already really well trained in that area, is actually a red flag for me. because I know that some people can just turn it on. They can turn it on 110% and do it completely perfectly because this is their nature. They know how to shapeshift into different modes of being, but it's not integrated. And so if I just allow that to continue and allow that perfection to continue, and let's just say it's a bodybuilding comp or something, all the way until the stage, as soon as that pressure is off, they're getting on stage in a bikini in front of all your friends, as soon as that pressure is off, or you go on holidays or something, it's the opposite. The whole thing falls away and they just eat everything. So even with someone who follows it 100% from day one, like I said, unless this is already who they are, and I have had plenty of people like that too, they still actually have to learn how to integrate it. So you need to learn how to be who you dream to be. So work out what that actually looks like. Work out if it's something you can sustain. Pick the point of least friction relating to that goal. What's the first measurable step you can take today that will not stress your body out, that will not make it too hard for you to sustain, and that you're actually even a little bit excited about is even better. Like, what's the first thing you want to let go of? And then let go of the perfectionism. Nobody does it perfectly. You have to change slowly, over time, incrementally. Give yourself grace, and if you go all in and then you fall off, you just pick yourself back up again, ask what went wrong, put a strategy in place for getting back on better next time, and just keep trying and just understand that it's completely normal, because if it is not your identity, it's going to take time. And lastly, before we go, I just want to highlight to you that you can absolutely change your identity on a core level. You can go from someone who binge eats, someone who hates exercising, someone who feels exhausted, who makes all the wrong choices for herself and her goals. You can go from that person to being someone who is completely aligned with where you want to be. So it's completely possible. It's just the approach. So focus on integrating changes one at a time. Focus on being who it is that you dream to be, and your goals won't be too far away. So thanks for listening today if you got this far, and I will see you next week.